Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ever Pier virtual town hall meeting, floods and what to expect. We have some very important information to share today. I hope you will enjoy it. I hope you'll also share it with your friends, your neighbors, post the link on social media, let people know and get this word out. Anybody who lives in a floodplain can really benefit from this information. The presentation was put together by a number of people, including our councilman and Flood and Erosion Protection Chairman Stacy Grimes, our Chief of Police Brett Ansel, our great Luna Pier Volunteer Fire Department led by Chief Robert Denias and Assistant Fire Chief Derek Welton. My name is Jim Gardner, Mayor of the City of Luna Pier. I'll be your presenter today. Let's jump right in. We hope it doesn't flood this year. However, hope is not a plan. Planning for an event doesn't make it more likely to happen. It just helps us to be ready in case it does happen. The purpose of this presentation is to discuss the history of lakeshore flooding in Luna Pier. We want to raise awareness of our current flood risk. We want to discuss the roles and responsibilities in dealing with this risk. We want to discuss our evacuation plan in the event of a citywide flood. Our goal is to ensure that no one is caught off guard and everyone will have an emergency plan. I want to share a video clip of what we can expect in the case of a flood. Sit back and enjoy. When you look at that kind of hydraulic pressure just pounding against that dike for hours, sometimes days on end, you can imagine how much stress and how much wear and tear that puts on our dike system. A little bit of a history. 1965, that was the first major flood that I remember. It was really kind of an omen of things to come. 1971 through 1973, Luna Pier was devastated by a number of floods. Sometimes these flood events were only a week apart. Houses in Luna Pier were flooded numerous times. Houses along the lakeshore really took a pounding because there was no flood protection system at all. The waves crashed right into the houses and really caused some structural damage for some of those houses. The highest ever recorded flood level in Luna Pier was April of 1973. We had 3 days of 50+ mile an hour winds. Those are gale force winds that pounded for a number of days and brought the water level up to its higher ever recorded level to this day. We've never had a flood that bad. We had to do something, so in 1973 we installed a rock box dike system. This is meant as a temporary fix. It actually worked really well and it held up for a number of years. By 1984, the rock box dike system was starting to fail. It was really showing wear and tear. It was starting, sand was washing off from underneath it. It was starting to lean a little bit. We had to put in a new dike system. So in 1984, we put in a new dike system. We did, however, make it a little bit lower than the Corps of Engineers specification. As a result, we paid a price. The city flooded again in 1985. With our brand new dike system, the waves went right over the top of it and the whole city flooded. In 1986, we installed wave deflectors on top of that dike system. That's that blue metal piece that you see on top of the dike, and we put tiebacks in at the base of the dike to hold it in place. That held up again. We went through a number of floods and were protected. 1998 was really a test. We had a major flood. Allen Cove was flooded during that time because they are outside of the main dike system, but the city actually stayed dry during that pounding. The water level gradually dropped over the years due to a less than average precipitation through a number of years. The lake levels all around the Great Lakes dropped considerably, and some people thought that maybe our flood days were over. We wouldn't have to worry about it again. However, weather patterns changed. More than average rainfall fell for a number of years. By 2018, after several years of no flooding, we were surprised by an April flood that flooded the entire Allen Cove region and really threatened our whole city with some vulnerabilities that we had in our dike system at the time. We had some repeat flooding between 2018 and 2019. April of 2019, almost to the day before of the flood a year earlier, we had another flood. And we were able to keep up with pumping for the most part to keep the damage to a minimum. Now, keep in mind that the highest lake levels before the 2018-2019 level were in 1984 to 1987. However, the highest flood level was still April of 1973, when the water levels were actually a little bit lower than they were in the mid-80s and lower than they are now. The flood level was actually higher just because of the severity of that storm. Now, our current conditions, the average Lake Erie water level is now 12 inches higher today than it was last year at this time. That brings the monthly average 5 inches above the all-time high record for this month. We're already setting new record highs for the average lake level. Our current dike system is 36 years old. We have never experienced the 50+ mile per hour storms combined with these record high lake levels. If we get these gale force winds out of the northeast with these high lake levels, the city it will be in trouble. Everyone needs an emergency plan. Our Flood and Erosion Protection Committee does a great job monitoring our dike system. They are in charge of monitoring the condition of the dike. They have coordinated efforts to rebuild all of the pump stations, and they've upgraded all the electrical panels. They're ordering continuous repairs to the dike system. They're addressing vulnerabilities discovered during the recent flood events. Last year, they were able to purchase a 6-inch, 2,300 gallon per minute used pump at a very, very substantial savings over what it would cost for a new pump. We are very happy to have that. After renting pumps several times, maybe this exact same pump we rented, we decided we really needed to have one that we can deploy immediately if we need to. The Flood and Erosion Committee is responsible for re-inspecting the dikes after every flood and making sure that the repairs are done. Here you can see some damage to the dike system done by one of our flood events. And there you see the repair that was done. At the base here, you can see the tiebacks, those bars going down into the water, and the wave deflector on top of the dike. Here's some erosion we experienced down by the canal gate. And there's the repair that was done and ordered by the Flood and Erosion Protection Committee. There's our beautiful new 2,300 gallon per minute pump that we have on standby. We're ready to deploy that as soon as we need it. Our DPW, Dave and his crew, do a great job. They maintain and regularly test the pumps. They're the ones in charge of deploying and operating the pumps. They install the barriers at the dike openings at the pier and at Meters Bend. They perform the repairs to address some of these vulnerabilities that we discovered earlier. They're the eyes and ears of the city. They watch out for us. They're out there all of the time bringing things, any issues to me, and we get on them right away. They're the boots on the ground and literally in the water during a flood event. They're out there from morning till night, however long it takes. They are very, very dedicated, and we're thankful for them for the many, many hours they put in, especially during a flood event. Our hats off to Dave and his crew. Here's some of their handiwork. They made and installed this extension to the canal gate there that you see. And as you can see, the water is all the way to the top of that previous top of that gate. It would come over and flood the city if that extension were in place. Our great Luna Pier volunteer fire department monitors conditions. They're on standby when conditions become threatening. They assist with the emergency measures as necessary. They're the ones who warn the residents through sirens or loudspeakers or even going door to door when that becomes necessary. They're responsible for the evacuation of residents when that is needed. Our fire chief can order a mandatory evacuation. He does have that authority and will use it as necessary to keep the residents and the rescue workers safe. First responders are cool, let's just face it. If you have the skills that it takes, why not join our fire department and you can be cool too. The Luna Pier Police Department is in charge of closing the streets as needed and blocking access to evacuated areas. They're the ones who communicate with the first responders and with the residents. They're the ones who will enforce the mandatory evacuation orders if that becomes necessary. We work in cooperation with the American Red Cross. They provide the emergency food, clothing, and shelter as needed to evacuees. It's really best to prearrange where you will go, contact your friends, relatives, hotels, have a plan in place beforehand, before the high stress situation of a flood event. Here are some things you can watch for. Look at the wind direction. We don't really have a problem from rainwater. Ours is the northeast winds, the flood, the wind, the waves, bringing that water up high. Look at the weather conditions. Watch for these northeast winds above 15 miles per hour for long periods of time. You can look at the water level meter in Allen Cove right there by the bridge. When it gets into the yellow, we get concerned and we start to take steps to get ready for a flood. You can monitor our city Facebook page, the City of Luna Pier Facebook page. Our fire department has a Facebook page. Our police department has one too. You can watch them, monitor them for updates. Look at our website. We update the local news media. We get calls from them. There are many sources to watch. When things get bad, we will do our best to keep you informed. Now, the National Weather Service does issue warnings, but they've been fairly inaccurate and sometimes too late to do any good. Sometimes the water is actually going down by the time they issue a flood warning. Don't wait on the National Weather Service. Be aware of the conditions. Look out and listen and be prepared. Here's an app that I use. It's a free app you can download to your phone, predictwind.com. That's been very accurate over the years. I watch that, and sometimes right down to the hour, they'll tell what the weather conditions and the wind conditions are going to be on the lake. When you see the wind coming down, as in this photo here, coming the entire length of Lake Erie, that's what drives our wind and the waves and the water up to high levels. Now, our flood warning system, you'll hear a siren. That's a rapid high-low sound. That rings for the flood for 3 minutes. That's much longer than the normal fire siren or rescue siren. The rescue siren has a slow developing high-low sound and doesn't last nearly as long as the flood siren. The flood siren means that we have a flood warning. A warning has been issued. It's similar to a tornado warning siren. With the potential for a citywide flood, the first flood siren will broadcast a warning for 3 minutes. If you hear a second siren that'll ring twice as long, that means that we are evacuating. It's an order to evacuate and a warning to evacuate. Get ready. In the event of evacuation, there's some things you can do to prepare. Make a list of items beforehand so that you know what to take. Your list should include phone chargers, backup batteries, medications, any prescription medications that you have. If you have a CPAP machine, you'll need that. You'll need to take that with you. Remember, it may be several days before you can get back into your home. So make a list beforehand of what you will need to get by for several days. Move all vehicles to high ground as soon as possible. Remember, the natural gas will be shut off. The gas company does this. We have no say in it. If a meter is at risk of going underwater, they will shut it down and it will stay off. They will not turn the service back on again until the meter is replaced if it has gone underwater. The electrical may be shut down. It's a very key step that you should take. You should pull the main if you're forced to evacuate your house to keep everybody at risk. If the electrical is going to go underwater, pull that main and keep our rescue workers and yourself safe. Plan where you will stay beforehand. Know where you will go. Plan for your pets. Remember, you may be out of your house for several days. If that's too long for your pet to survive unattended, then get the pet out. We will help you evacuate the pet, but it'd be very difficult to go back in later to get a pet. Evacuation may be mandatory for the safety of the residents and for the rescue workers. We want everyone to be safe. And that is our primary goal, is to get people out of harm's way. The city departments will work together to provide awareness to the weather conditions. We'll put the pumps out when they're needed, and hopefully before they are needed, we'll have them in place, staged, ready to start when we see that there is a threat of flooding. We want to have them ready as soon as possible. They aren't a guarantee that we can keep all of the water out, but we can keep water out for as long as it takes if the flooding, to keep the maximum level down as low as possible. The city will be responsible for evacuation, coordinated through our fire department, and provide refuge to a safe place. We will get you out, and the Red Cross will take it from there, or go to your designated spot that you have already set up. We can give you assistance with personal items. And again, our priority will be evacuating residents. We may be able to assist with some items if we have the staffing and availability, and it is safe to go in and get those things. But try to have those ready and get out and get everything the first time. That's why that list is important. Here's one of our city workers. We're just starting to deploy the pumps here, getting them ready. We got them pumping. We got more pumps on the way. In this particular incident, we were able to keep up with the water and keep the damage down to a minimum and reduce the flood risk. Really eliminated it in this case. Mitigation. There are steps you can take to protect your home, protect your property. Keep vehicles in good running order and get them to high ground before it's too late. Now, high ground, we mean get them out of the city. Don't just take them inside the dike system, because we never know if that dike system could be breached and you would have to move your cars again. That would be very problematic and maybe impossible. Get them west out of the city or up on high ground before it's too late. Elevate items in your home above the flood level. If you live in a house that lies very low in a low-lying area and there's a risk of flood getting in your house, as you walk around today, just look for items that would not survive if they got wet, especially photo albums, things like that can't be replaced. Move those items up to high ground ahead of time. Remember the items you have stored in garages and sheds. Floods happen very, very quickly. Move those items up now before it's too late. You may not have time in the event of a flood. Conditions deteriorate very, very rapidly, and you may not have time to move those things when the flood is imminent. Remember, boat trailers, they will float on a trailer. We've had problems in the past of boats actually floating and carrying the trailer with it and moving things when the water got high. Be aware of that. Any campers, anything that's stored, they may get wet also. Have a plan to move them out if possible. Know your home's elevation. This is important. Not all areas are equal. It's hard to judge just by looking at the ground and how high your house is off the ground. If you're in a low-lying area, that may not be high enough to be above the flood level. To know your elevation, the property records at City Hall sometimes have an elevation certificate. Many times they do not. If you do not know the elevation, you can hire a survey and have that done and have an elevation certificate for your property, there is a chance that you could get a reduction in your flood insurance rate if your elevation is above the flood level. So that elevation certificate could possibly save you some money on flood insurance. Now, we've done FEMA elevation grants in the past. That money becomes available from time to time. It has been available in the last couple of years. We don't know if it's going to be available again. There are some restrictions on the grants that you need to be aware of. First of all, it's a 25% matching money match on your part. You'll have to pay 25% of the cost of the elevation up front before any work is done. The average cost of an elevation is sometimes $100,000 to $150,000, and you will be responsible for 25% of that before any work is done. Also, there will be a deed restriction if you accept the grant, that you will carry flood insurance on that property for the life of the property, not just for as long as you live there, but it's a deed restriction, so the next owner has to maintain flood insurance for as long as a structure stands on that property. We do have sandbags available. They are self-service. They're free of charge. They're self-service. Now, remember, this is very, very hard work. It's not for everyone. Know your capability before you go down and fill sandbags. Call City Hall if you need help. We are here to help, and we'll help in any way we can. Don't overdo it. It's like shoveling snow. Sandbags are very, very heavy. Handling them, lifting them, moving them is very strenuous work. Know your capabilities and don't overdo it. Call the City Hall if you have any questions. We will do everything we can to help you out. That wraps up our presentation. If you have any questions, you can call City Hall. You can comment below. Again, let people know if you found this informative. If it's things that people need to know, spread it through social media. We thank you for tuning in, and it's a great day to live in Luna Pier. Let's prepare and be ready and enjoy this beautiful time.